Good morning. It's May 28th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. It seems as though there's going to be no respite from the anti-Semitism that permeates college campuses these days. They use the guise of what's going on in Gaza to spew their hatred of both Israel and Jews in particular. It's something's been latent on these campuses for some time, and supposedly elite universities in our nation, and the conflict in Gaza has allowed this anti-Semitism to come out into the open. When I watch these demonstrations and news video, one thing seems to stand out to me. The majority of these avid protesters have their faces covered. They want to protest, but they don't want to be identified in any way. They want to feel like they're part of some movement, but they don't want to hurt their chances of being employed or even staying in school. A significant number of these campus protesters are not even students, just agitators, and these gullible students follow along like sheep. It may be time for law enforcement to step in and make it clear that if you damage property or attempt to intimidate other people or students, then you're going to have to face the consequences. Now, there was a time when cowards like these protesters belonged to the Ku Klux Klan. They would march around with white sheets being made into robes, and have their faces and heads covered so they could remain anonymous. States got tired of this and began to pass laws that were aimed at these cowardly racists. In 1845, New York made it illegal to appear disguised or armed as a result of some of the Klan's activities. There are some 15 states that have enacted laws for anti-mask protesters. Many local governments have such laws as well. And they've done this because of the belief that wearing a mask to hide your identity emboldens people to commit crimes and make those crimes more frightening to those they're trying to intimidate. If these pro-Palestinian protesters truly believed in what they are protesting, it would seem to me they would be proud to have their names and faces identified with their cause. But no, they take the cowardly approach because they don't want to be held accountable for their own brand of anti-Semitism. There's an obvious and simple answer to these protesters' growing aggressiveness, an answer that proved effective against their forebears in the KKK, denying, intimidating, and violent protesters the right to conceal their identities via face coverings. Hamas supporters, Antifa, Patriot Front, and any other act boldly so long as they can remain anonymous. Stripped of this anonymity and the intimidating power of the keffiyeh and black bandana, they will be far less likely to engage in this criminal behavior. The supporters of these cowardly protesters and thugs, and they are that, both in Congress and in the media, claim they have the right to protest, and even to cause some level of violence, all in the name of free speech. But they would be wrong. Anti-masking laws are a critical tool in maintaining public safety and accountability. As I said in the past, it greatly reduced the Klan's influence, and it gave law enforcement the ability to identify and prosecute the perpetrators of those hate crimes for what they were doing. The constitutionality of anti-mask laws has been repeatedly upheld, affirming that the public's right to safety and the state's ability to enforce laws can supersede any individual's right to anonymity and anonymous expression of their points of view. As recently as 2004, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit upheld New York's anti-mask law. Notably, symbolic messages can be conveyed with clothing and costumes that do not cover the face, while content-based restrictions, like allowing a mask for Halloween celebration or masquerade ball, they're not going to be viewed as what the law covers, and they will pass constitutional muster. If law enforcement officials in New York and other areas of the country start enforcing these laws, then I suspect these rallies and anti-Semitic protests would suddenly become much smaller. There is some model statutory language out there that would be upheld in the courts, and it would read as follows, quote, "No person shall wear a mask or any other facial obscurant or disguise with intent to conceal the identity of the wearer while congregating in a public place with other people who are also masked or disguised, except that such conduct is not unlawful when it occurs in connection with a Halloween or masquerade party or similar celebration. Violation of this statute shall be punishable by not more than 15 days imprisonment and a fine of not more than $10,000, in addition to any penalties arising from concurrent criminal acts and civil violations." End quote. By adopting such language and enforcing it, these cowards would have to show how much they believe in their cause. Facing the above-mentioned penalties would make a vast majority of these idiots think twice about what they're doing. And if liberal DAs like Alvin Bragg of Manhattan and Eric Gonzalez of Brooklyn won't prosecute, then the Justice Department should step in. Attorney General Pam Bondi should instruct the U.S. attorneys for the Southern and Eastern District of New York and other districts around the country to activate a federal law that criminalizes violence directly against the federally protected activities of Jewish students at Columbia, Brooklyn College, and any other university in the nation. Similar federal criminal cases should be initiated in other courts wherever anti-Israel protesters promote and engage in anti-Israel violence. If we start enforcing the law on these cowards, I promise you, it will end soon. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.